Hi, everyone. Welcome. Hello, hello at the top of the hour. Happy to see everyone today. I'll give us a few moments to get some more of you in, and then we'll get started. If you want to type in the chat, I know this is kind of cliche, but where you are today, I'd love to hear where you are. It seems like in the summer, everyone is here, there, and everywhere. So I'm curious to hear where you're working from today. I'm in Houston, Texas. So I am originally from Arizona, and I've lived in Austin or Houston for most of my adult life, at least. Let's see. I don't see anything in the chat yet. Hopefully it's enabled. If not, we can put some things in Q&A. Chat's disabled. Bummer. Okay. That's all right. We can just feel free throughout the day. Thank you, Catherine, for telling me. That is one of those pesky settings that I feel like we sometimes miss. So I apologize for that. But that's all right. We'll keep going. If you want to put anything in Q&A, if you want to put where you're at today, I'd love to hear from you. And we'll get started in just a moment. Okay, let's give it one more minute. I don't know if any of you are going next week to ASAE Annual. I'm super excited to be there. Prop Fuel's team will be there again this year. And I'd love for you to stop by if you're going to be in Atlanta with us. Okay, New Jersey. Okay, Justin's in New Jersey. Thanks, Justin. All right, so we're just going to navigate around this chat issue, but I'm going to go ahead and get started and share my screen. I use Canva. If you don't already use Canva, I'm a huge fan of it. It's just like kind of life-changing for me, really. Just so much easier to do presentations and to move things around and get content where you need it to be for whatever you need it for. So anyway, thank you for joining me today. I am Brianne Wheeler. This is less talking, more listening to get in and keep your members' attention. And it's July 26th. I was feeling a little bit like, it's the middle of the summer and I'm doing this presentation and we needed something kind of bright and cheery. So we're going with the summer theme today for this conversation. So today, what we're going to be talking about really are condensed into 3 points. The first, I'm going to go into it's what you don't know about your members that will hurt your engagement. And a lot of the time I think that we think that we kind of know everything we need to know and we just need to go get a new strategy or something, but really sometimes there are gaps in knowledge that we can uncover. Second is value-based member engagement that blends your current strategy with opportunities to listen. So today, as you listen, I'm really talking less about changing your entire strategy and really just adding to it some new ideas for what's possible. And then third, listening tactics that some more like on the tactical level that can lead to a better understanding of your member needs, plus the path for your team to fulfill it. I think that's the challenging thing sometimes too, is a lot of the time we think, okay, this is a great idea, but I don't really know how to do it. And so I'm going to give you some ideas for how to implement the things I'm talking about today. So first, if you are not familiar with me yet, I'm Brianne Wheeler. I lead the marketing team at Prop Fuel, which is an engagement platform that's on email and SMS. And it's built especially for associations. Most of my career before I joined Prop Fuel was in the member-based association space. So I've worked for several healthcare associations. I worked for an AMC doing marketing and communications for all of the healthcare clients that we had. And then I also worked for the Texas Medical Association when I lived in Austin. So that's most of my experience. I mentioned that because sometimes I think when you see, a software vendor doing a presentation, you think like, oh, they're just gonna, try to sell me something. But I'm very passionate about the philosophies behind different types of engagement, and I speak on them often. I spoke at ASA Annual last year. I've spoken at Digital Now a couple times, and regularly on webinars like this one. So thank you so much for joining me today. Again, so we're going to start with something from you, and I know this is going to be a little bit difficult in the chat. You can put it in the QA. Don't worry about mucking up the Q&A. We'll just deal with it later. But I would love for you to tell me something good or bad that has happened to you professionally this month. So take just a thought, if it's this summer, if it's over the last couple of months, just something that's relevant to your work, something that's been a highlight or something that's been a challenge. I would love to hear what that is. And we're just going to bank that for the conversation for a few minutes from now, as I'm talking about, one of the points on listening. So again, chat's disabled. If you want to put it in Q&A, I'd love to hear from you. And one of the things I'll just share that has happened professionally with me is we've been working on a lot of our automation just internally, and trying to get more information and more great content out that can reach more people. And so I'm really, really excited about doing that. And in conjunction with our more personal touch that PropFuel is known for. Okay, I see chats up. Okay, awesome. Robson, thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to take a look at this. Amber, you started a new position as a marketing manager. That's amazing. Great job. Sean, last month you hired a new employee. Lots of employment changes. That's amazing. Okay, Justin is expanding the marketing department. Awesome. Let's see, Kelly, I just want to read through these. This is great. The National Wellness Institute team is coming off our 40th annual conference. It was once again an epic success. Congrats, Kelly. That has to feel good, like a breath, just you can take a breath after those big conferences. I know exactly what that's like. So we're looking at a remodel, transitioning in roles, adding new staff. It sounds like there's a lot of change happening just with staff, which is amazing to hear. And certainly important for this conversation, just in terms of expanding your engagement. So thanks for playing on that. Keep those thoughts in mind as we go through what we're going to discuss next. So I wanted to start off with some of the engagement challenges that I hear over and over and over again. And this has been for the entirety of my career with associations, which started back in 2008 or 9, I believe it was. So these are, and you see these in, I was just reading the Marketing General benchmarking report. That's a great resource if you haven't already accessed it. Check that out, but you'll see the consistency between what I'm saying here and what's in that report that has come directly from association professionals like you. First is poor experience and engagement. Members have to kind of seek out the value because the association may not be sharing it or demonstrating it in a way where it really connects and provides them with the experience they're looking for. So there's kind of like a disconnect there. Second, which is a huge one, and I'm going to cover this quite significantly today, is data issues. A lot of different challenges with data. You have data that's outdated. You have no idea when the member completed that information. It may be incomplete. There might just be gaps. It might be in multiple systems. And then also, you don't know how to put it together, right? It's like we have all of this data and it can be very, very overwhelming. And so that kind of limits what you can do. It's great to have data, but if it's incomplete, it's stale, it's not the right data that you need in order to serve the members, then it's really difficult to act on what they may need because you just don't know. And then Also, ineffective tools and strategies. So I see this a lot too. I've heard this so many times over the years, and I've experienced it as well, which is we just keep sending member communications, but most members don't take action. So like the solution to that is let's send another email, or let's send this 3 more times like we do for renewals, right? So there's a disconnect between like, what's being sent and then the action on the part of the member. So these are very common member challenges. If you're shaking your head right now, it's fine. I think everybody, to every association to an extent, has these challenges, especially in the digital space where we're always trying to connect. So that said, we make a lot of attempts to understand and engage with and listen to members. We sometimes you'll have an onboarding form. So when somebody joins, okay, this is a great opportunity to get more information about them. Let's find out more about them, right? We might ask members to log in to their profile to update fields. Maybe that happens at renewal time or throughout the year periodically. Member surveys. So that could be in many forms. It can be in follow-up to a conference or an event, or just seeking out more information on what the members are looking for. Calling members to get more information over the phone. I remember talking to an ED a couple of years ago, and she said, it was during COVID, and she said, I'm going to call every single one of my members. That's my goal this year. And I really wanted to ask her how she was going to do that, because she has a lot of members. But that was one way that she felt I can get one-on-one. I can at least have a conversation and see what they're really needing and get that anecdotal conversation and information going. Also, observations of online behavior. You have, plenty of opportunities to observe what people are doing when they're, on your website, or when they logged in. Where did they go when they logged into their profile? Things like that. And then one-on-one conversations, as I mentioned, I think a lot of those happen when you're in person, right? Or on a webinar like this, I asked you a question to get a little bit more personal about what you're experiencing lately. So this is, and arguably, I'm sure it's different for each organization, but basically this is what you have now in terms of member information. You have member profile data, you have whatever they that you asked and they provided you upon joining, or when they signed up for something else, another class or educational program. So that ranges from, your basic contact information to demographic information. You might know their wants and needs. You might either anecdotally one-on-one, or in form of like a survey question that you might have asked at some point. Why did they join? What do they need? And that's very like on an aggregate scale, right? It's very generalized and meant to come together and say, okay, this many members said this is what they need or what they want. And then their level of engagement. Again, when they join, you might know something about them. You might know, do they want to volunteer? Do they want to join a committee or a board? Just how do they even want to receive communications from you? That's a common one, especially during the acquisition process. So there are a lot of pieces of data you have. It's not like you don't have any. However, arguably, it's what you don't know about your members that you may not be, it might be a blind spot for you. So who they really are, not just their name and what city they live in, but, even a hobby that might be relevant to what they do in their personal life, for example, what they actually need. So not in like some general sense of, I want a member discount. I'm sorry, I want a discount on the conference. That's helpful to me, but like what they actually need right now. What are they struggling with, in their job? And what happened this week? Is there one piece, is there one resource, one document, something that would be super helpful to them that you're not sure what they need? And then what they want in terms of engagement for, networking. What are they seeking out? What are they missing that they're looking for that the organization might be able to offer? So I'm sure you can think about this in context of your own organization, what you currently have, but there are certainly gaps in that you don't know, because even if you sent something out last month saying, we want to hear from you, something might have changed in the last month. So data is only as good as the last time you collected it, really. So, and, as I say this, when I say data, I know this is like more technical, but what I'm really talking about here is the listening component. The way that we get more information is by listening, not telling, right? So more on that in a moment, but more specifically, the kinds of information you're looking to, get out of members is intent questions. So will they come to the conference? Will they rejoin? Are they planning to renew their membership at the end of the membership cycle? Acquisition, why are they even here? So many. I was thinking back to my healthcare organization days, and we had probably 25 to 30,000 people on the email list and only about 10,000 paying members. And we had no idea why they were there. So finding out why they're there could be incredibly impactful when it comes to adding value to the membership process, or providing a new service, or engaging students. A ton of options there. Also, perception of value. So I put NPS here, Net Promoter Score. Would they recommend your organization? If you have a low NPS score, that's a sign that you're just not there. Whatever value you think you're putting out to members is not perceived by the members in the same way. Challenges, I mentioned this a minute ago. What are they struggling with now? What can you help with now? What would be really helpful to them that you can provide that's not currently part of the resources you offer on the website, or educationally, whatever it is. It might be something trending in the space that you might be able to help them with. And then type of engagement. Is there something that you're not even thinking of, that they want to participate, but they don't know how to get started, and they may not reach out to do it? Content contributions, for example, writing articles, doing webinars, putting on webinars for peers. That's a great opportunity to get members involved. So unless asked about it, they're probably not going to bring it to you, right? Everybody's so busy. We know this. Everyone's incredibly busy. So, going back to the question that I asked you earlier, which is what's happened to you this summer, one of the things I saw over and over again is that you're hiring new people, you're in a new position yourself. All of these are perfect opportunities to start the conversation around engagement, whether you're in a new position, you brought a new employee on, what new ideas do they have in order to engage members? So that alone, me knowing this about you today, helps me present to you in a more relevant and personalized way. So, and why don't you know? So it's like, I hope nobody's beating up on themselves thinking like, we're not hitting the mark. But it's the process of getting this information and listening can be very friction filled. It's laborious. It can be stressful, honestly, to figure out how to do it in the first place. Time consuming. It can be costly. If you're making one-on-one phone calls, or you're hiring somebody to do, phone calls, that's costly, and it's manual a lot of the time. So it's not something that's scalable that you can, do in one shot. Also, when you're thinking about surveys, the outcomes on surveys are historical always. If you had a conference last month, like one of you did, and you had a conference survey, it's not that the data is not good, it's just that's historical. It happened last month. That's how they felt about that month. And it's also intended to be aggregate, right? You're getting a feel for the overall success of the conference, or certain aspects, or how was the food, or did you get what you needed educationally? Those are all great in like a aggregate way, but they don't really help you act on something that a member needs individually, or if they had a bad experience. It's all disconnected, and there's space in between. So if you had the survey open for 2 weeks, you closed it down, now you have to analyze it. time has lapsed by the time you get to somebody and see something that they put in the open-ended comments. So it's difficult to act on. Also scalability is difficult. And then I want to mention this because, again, I was thinking back to my AMC days, and the way we've always done it is so often the default. It's just, this is the way we've always done it. We have this survey that we've done for all of these years. We can't not do the survey. We have to keep it going because over time we want to see how things have changed. And yes, you can do the survey, but in a certain aspect, you get into over year this fixed mindset about there's nothing else that we can do. And that's frankly a little bit depressing. I remember feeling like having some of the same outcomes year after year and thinking like, I just feel stuck. I feel like there's nothing else I can do. And so the opposite of that is the growth mindset. And so I'll talk about that in a moment. I want to give you one more example of when knowing gets you stuck. And this happened to me. So this large annual conference that we used to put on for my healthcare client, they were very concerned with the cost of the conference is going to be significant that year because of the location. And so the challenge was to get more even non-members to come to the event, members and non-members, but then also attendee engagement. So after they're already registered, we want to get them excited, get them maybe even referring their friends and bringing their friends, and also giving them an idea of the specific content that would be catered toward them. And so the solution to this that my team put together was to deliver content based on what we already knew about them, which was, it ended up being segmentation based on their practice setting. So we had like acute care case managers. We had, other setting case managers. There's like several different ones. And so we split up the AMS data, the membership data based on that. Well, there were a lot of challenges with that because it took me a ton of time to break out all of this, not to mention do 6-7 different campaigns to all these different groups. The AMS data, I was looking at some of the names and I'm like, these names, people have been members for 25 years. I have no idea if they're still in this practice setting or if they're consulting or if they're retired now. So the data accuracy was a problem. No practice setting data for non-members, right? So we don't know what the practice setting is for non-members who are just consuming some of our, are on the subscriber list, are getting our monthly newsletter, no idea about them. And then at the end of the day, the biggest thing is we were still guessing about the wants and needs and interests of those individual attendees, because yes, somebody could be an acute care case manager, but maybe they just started their own business and they really need more of a leadership track. So I think that, it was helpful to do this. I think we got people's attention by giving them something that was this much more relevant to the experience that they were going to have at the event. But we were still missing the mark because it was just so much guesswork. We were guessing at the end of the day on what they needed and what was really going to add value and keep them coming back year after year. And so another way to explain this is the kind of thinking about it as a gap in listening. So when I was talking about this campaign, all these on the right side, this confirm receipt, direct someone, present option, share information, really the pink and the gold were the two that I was doing mostly in those campaigns because I was trying to share more information, more relevant information. But there's this huge gap. There's a gap in opportunity here because instead of just telling them what I thought they needed based on who I knew they were in a limited capacity, I could have just asked them what they were interested in and then deliver it based on that. So this comes out really through the member life cycle, not just for events. You can think about this if you think about the things that your members do over the years, the engagement levels, whether it's on webinars or just general engagement throughout the year, even advocacy. so many opportunities to listen. And so the more that you know, and you can build trust and have a member say, hey, they're really listening and interested in what I want and what I need, the better off you're going to be, because then you're creating an environment where there's a kind of two-way connection there, not just the member being the recipient constantly of more information and trying to figure out what to do with it. So the way we think about this at Prop Fuel is three-step process, and this can go toward, you know, any channel you have, whether it's social media, you know, telemarketing, anything really, if in-person interactions. This process really works, and the process is ask, capture, act. The first always starts with asking a question, right? So you're listening first as the mechanism for understanding better. Then you're capturing this new data that you didn't have. So, and by the way, the data is never going to be perfect. You're never going to get like 100% of your membership to respond to something. So I think that, like, if you're a perfectionist, like I can be sometimes, you kind of have to just like let that fall away and say, okay, well, if we got 25% of our membership to update a field in their profile or whatever it is, then we're well on our way to understanding more and serving those people, at least those who want to engage the moment. And then the act piece is really important. So not only do you have this new piece of information that you've listened to and you've captured, and you can now do something with it immediately. So I'm going to give you some examples of this in a minute, but it's not just about getting the new information and listening and going to take it back to your board and saying, oh, these people said this. It's truly an in the moment thing. You answered like this, let's give you this. And I love that two part of the act piece, because I think sometimes sometimes we're only doing one of the two. We're either capturing information or we're either calling them to action. But if you can do it together, that's ideal in the moment and really adds that instant value. So we're talking, again, another way to think about this is shifting the purpose of the communication. So we do a lot of informing, we call to action, we ask for money, and we speak from our voices, from the voice of the association. And we're kind of imparting constantly onto members this information that they need to do something with. If you flip it around and say, okay, we really want to shift the purpose of the communication for it to be member-based and member-focused, then you're including them in the conversation. You're helping them own their experience as opposed to just experiencing it based on how we want them to. We can show care. Some great examples I have of just literally asking, like, what has happened to you in your career? And that opportunity gives the member a feeling of just really feeling understood and giving them a voice. So it's a shift in mindset. I remember several times, particularly with educational programs, saying, well, we don't have enough registrants for this, or our member renewals are down, so let's send another email, or let's get on the phone, or whatever it was. And that's more of the same. And so shifting the purpose of the communication might get you better results. So I'm going to contrast the two of these here. So this is kind of the current blast method. I'm calling it the blast method. Broadcast, email, the typical what we do, which, by the way, is completely useful, and you should not eliminate that. I'm not suggesting that at all, but this is kind of our typical method. So if we look at this example, Teresa is a member of Any Association USA. Her membership has lapsed, and it's alarming, this message. And maybe you've seen some of this. Tell me if you have, if you've experienced this or said, okay, we're just going to get members' attention by, having something alarming and like they've lost their member benefits. So this is kind of I would say traditional style of, you've lost something, like you are now in a deficit, and we're using that to get you back. And we're doing that because you haven't renewed and we need your money, right? And I don't mean to be, it's not always that brash, but that's the real intent. And so now Teresa is no longer getting these member benefits. But what we're missing here is like, we don't know if Teresa cares. We don't know if Teresa has ever attended the annual conference. She may not need the 10% discount. She may also not be interested in public policy day. See where I'm going here? So it's like you're delivering things, again, based on what you think that they need based on the member benefits. So it's really association focused when we do this, because we're trying to get them to do something, versus this listening value-based method, which is, what do we need to know about the member in order to figure out how to get them to act or to better engage them? And so this could be the same campaign done completely differently, these two that I'm showing you. The first method is like, you're missing something. The second one is, well, we're just going to come from the place and assume that we don't know. And so if we don't know, let's go find out. And then we can do things with this. So if Teresa responds to this email, first of all, it looks different, right? It's very simple. It's eye-catching. It's not, huge blocks of text. It's very simple. Are you planning to renew? If she says yes, then great, you can send her there. If she says no, I think that's the more interesting response, because now you can send her to a secondary question that says, hey, why not? And there are several options there, right? Like, I'm retiring, I don't see the value. Those are incredibly important questions to have answered by your members, because then maybe you can do something about it, especially if this doesn't happen, the day before they are supposed to renew. If you can ask it, 6 months ago from this date, then you can still do something about it if you still have half a membership year in order to try to deliver that value. So it's a significant shift in just the visual of it, and then also the intent. So this is what I call flipping the script. Instead of asking, what do we need to tell members? First ask, what don't we know? And then determine, what should we ask? And so it always starts with a question. You can do this today with a member you're on the phone with. Instead of giving them information, you can ask them a question that might engage them differently. So I want to turn this over to you now. And I know it's hard when you're consuming all of this information just in a moment to think about an example, but take a moment and think about a recent communication that you had, a blast, whether or not you worked on it, something you saw, or maybe it was even from another organization. Something that was sent out, or something you're working on now. And then what was the goal of the campaign? So in the case that I just gave you, the goal of the campaign was to get the member to renew, right? We want them to renew their membership. And then think about, what could you have found out if you would have gotten curious about this group of members, for example, who hasn't renewed yet? What could you have found out that would have made the communication feel more personal? So not just like a generic, like you're in our system and you're getting this automated email because you're 2 weeks and then 1 week and then 3 days out from a member expiration. And then how could it have affected the members' desire to respond or act or engage? So think about that for a moment. And I'd love to hear in the chat. I wish this was a meeting and we can turn everybody on video and get some responses, but I'd love to see this in the chat. If you have examples here of something where we can flip the script here and turn it into a question instead of just a response. Let's see here. Maybe I'm looking through here. I'll give you a few minutes to do this. Previous staff never tracked data. I remember never. So sorry. I'm reading through this. Catherine, you said you just added a new staff member. That's awesome. And your new membership team starting from scratch to track data. That's amazing. So any thoughts on this? Or even if you don't have a specific example, I'd love to hear like the use case where you feel like this would be most useful. So is it with new member acquisition? Is it with member renewals? Is it with an event or conference? Is it advocacy? If you have a foundation tied to your association, if you work for an association, is it some kind of donor engagement? There are so many options here for engaging. Okay, Sarah, you said member renewals. Definitely. Yep, member renewals is a big one. Justin said we use this often, especially if they indicate they're not going to renew. We ask why. Yes, as I was saying, that is, to me, it's great, like 2 thumbs up if they want to renew. But if they don't, that is precisely the information I need as an association marketer or membership person, because I have got to figure out and go down the path and find out why they're not, right? Okay, Justin, also in onboarding campaigns, what led them to join? Absolutely. I think that's something that associations are struggling with right now across the board is why join? And we know why current members have joined in kind of a general sense. We know the member benefits they like, but we don't know what's attracting somebody who has a low level of awareness about the industry or about the organization. Why do they join? Super important. Okay, Eleanor, you said we're about to roll out a campaign to gather new member data. Goal is to get member information, so I don't know how to get ahead of that information gap to make the campaign more successful. Okay, let me think about that a little bit. So it's new member data. If you're talking about acquisition, I definitely, that onboarding campaign example I just gave is a big one. Finding out what led them to join. It's basically a question of value, right? Like, what do they value? And if they saw that in your organization before they even joined, then that's likely what they're going to be there for anyway. But then there are opportunities to give them more options to see more member benefits throughout the year, of course, too. Justin, for those who aren't attending the conference, also why? Yes, absolutely. I know for me, one of the biggest reasons used to be the cost, not just the cost of the conference itself, but it's probably more than the cost of the conference to just get there if you're out of town, right? Hotels for 2, 3, 4 nights, the travel, everything, food, accommodations. And if your organization isn't paying for it, what can you do about that? I know that one of the associations I used to work with did a payment plan for membership. For attendance at conferences, because if you start registration 6 months before the event, then it's much easier to get somebody to pay, $100, whatever it is a month, and then be paid up by the time the conference comes, than it is to, just miss out on the member and not have them go because they felt like they couldn't put down a chunk of money in advance. So that's another opportunity to listen there, is like the financial piece of it, which seems to be pretty significant these days. And then Eleanor, new data on existing members. Cool. Okay, Eleanor, I have some examples of that for you just in a minute. So you'll like these. Okay, awesome. So I'm going to go through some examples of this that I've seen that I think will help get, remember your juices flowing on all of these different options that you can have to listen. So the cure for incorrect and incomplete data. Here you go, Eleanor. So the Missouri State Teachers Association realized that they had a lot of gaps in their member database. And this ranged from current members. They also asked student members for data updates, because that's incredibly important and significant, especially at the point when the student is about to graduate, because they may not even have the same email address. So they did this in several ways, but this is an example of, they did a little $25 gift card drawing, and it's in the email. It says, this is the information we have on file for you. So we've filled all these fields. This is what we have. If anything looks off, let us know. Is this information correct? Yes or no? And then they can go on from there. and write new data fields back to their AMS on that secondary page. And I don't have an example of that, but essentially you're taking just a few clicks for a member to not log into their profile. It's not just this generic call to action like, hey, it's been 2 months, go log in and update your member profile. Very few members actually go and do that. But if you present their own information to them in the communication and say, is this correct or not? Much easier, much less friction for them to respond and give you the accurate information that you need. So in this case, they had 12,000 responses, 25% of the people who they sent it to responded. That's amazing. That's a huge response rate. And they got secondary emails, they got job titles and income and revenue numbers. Those two last ones, the job titles and the income and revenue, are really important for knowing who their membership is, targeting the right products and services to them, and then also understanding how much income they're making. So, and I don't actually know, that could have been some organizational members on the income there. I don't know if they asked for individual income. Cure for manual profile updates. So this is, again, like, you need to know more about your members than you do right now because it helps you serve them. And this, I love this question. It's very simple. Essentially, what is your company ownership structure? So this was for organizational members. And it's really important to see 34% of those who responded said that they're an LLC. And 17% said women owned, and minority owned was 14%. So you have, over 30% of those who responded saying that they were, women and minority owned. Very, very important to know in terms of how you serve members and even how you get them involved throughout the year. Declining membership. So in COSI, they had a lapsed member campaign, and it was over 4 weeks. They did, personalized check-ins that said, did you know that your membership expired? It's very simple. Over and over again, across all of the associations I've seen do this type of question, so many, it's around usually 50-55% of those who respond say, no, I didn't even know my membership expired. That is amazing to me, because it's not like they don't want to rejoin. They just didn't even know. After, the 7 or 8 or 10 renewal reminders that you sent them over the past 3 months, they still didn't know. But somehow asking it in a different way and just asking them the question if they even knew is, gets people's attention. So they had over 40,000 in revenue off of this campaign, which ends up being, $200,000 in the lifetime revenue value of a member. That is really significant. And it also, this is an important point that I want to make on all of these. It's eliminated the need for additional broadcast campaigns and also phone calls and more labor intensive and manual efforts to get members to renew. So you're reducing that number greatly. If this person that received this didn't know they expired and they can go renew right now, then that's one less person that you have to call or get in touch with. And somebody asked a question, I'll answer it just in a moment, about the buttons in the landing page, or if they go to the next email. I will answer that in just a moment. So the cure for slow growth. This is brand new. I've never presented on this example before. I love it. AANP, nurse practitioners, they did this campaign that was so awesome. They do a sweepstakes every year where they do a discount on dues, so it's 10% off. But then they also give a chance to win like a big package. It's a travel stipend and a huge package to attend the annual conference. And so what they did was they did an apples to apples comparison here. So they did their I put 2020 in here, it's 2022. Their 2022 regular email campaign that used to go out was just a broadcast email. It would be, the way it was described to me was like block of text, join now. more bullet points, block of text, join now. And so that was the traditional one. And so they compared it against this campaign that they did in Prop Fuel in this listening style in 2023. And so they had a 26% increase in the number of promo codes used. So this wasn't just like page views, or they were actually counting what the number of promo codes were used so they could track it accurately. They had 560 new members come from this campaign, and it was a 26% increase. The only thing they did was change it from the broadcast style to a question of, why are you waiting to join, with all of these options here, right? So to answer the question about the landing page, this right here is the email. This is the email in an email form. It could be in another form, SMS, but this is the email here that says, here are your options. And yes, they are buttons, right? So you click on this, but the magic of it is on the back end of this, where you say, okay, this person that's retired or now retiring, we need to tag them like that. And we need to make sure they don't get any more of this type of campaign, right? So over time, you can see how we're actually cutting down as we learn more and listen more. We're cutting down on the number of communications that are useless to somebody who is now retiring or retired. And same thing, and this is just literally one click. And then based on how they answer, you might give them to, send them off to wherever they need to go. So I'd like to join now. Obviously, that's a clear call to action, send them where they want to go, get them to renew. The membership didn't meet my expectations. This one's super important. That is absolutely an opportunity for a phone call. That's where your membership department picks up the phone and says, please tell me what happened. I want to hear from you. And those are the people who need the phone call, right? The person who wants to join now does not need the phone call. So it's a way to reduce the staff time, reduce the manual, give everybody what they want. And then this here, this was 17,000. If you're just looking at their basic membership, it was about 17,000 in additional dues revenue on this single campaign. So significant ROI when you're just doing things a little bit differently and asking to listen instead of telling. Here for declining membership retention, similar. The ABYC, they said, we thought something was broken because everyone was paying online. We didn't get any checks in the mail. That is such a good problem to have when you're not getting checks in the mail, but it's because they've already paid. So, and this is pretty far out. This is in 45 days. So what they're doing here is they're moving up the renewal timing. So less people are expiring, and then you don't have to go and get them back. They already know they want to renew, and let's just get it done now. So I love this one, very simple. And then again, slow growth. Texas Society of CPAs, they asked an industry challenge question. So this was for prospective members. This is a great prospective member question to ask, which is, what is keeping you up at night? Because this can give you so many answers. You can find out the policy, if it's policy changes, is there something going on in policy right now that's important? That could lead to a webinar, that could lead to a policy event, right? Economic shifts, balancing workload, staffing, something else. All of these are just, okay, if this is what they need, let's go give it to them. And if we don't have it already, let's go build it, because we're seeing the signs that this is where the trends are going. And also it gives you an opportunity for prospective members, it gives you an opportunity to say, hey, we already provide this for you, and this is why you should join. Manual renewal follow-up, same thing here. Reduce time on mailed invoices, phone calls. This is my favorite on this one. Yes, I want to renew, but my invoice is the wrong amount. How many times have you had something come up and say, I would go do that now, but there's something not right with it, so I can't. So I'll just call them later. And then you don't call them. Well, this is a perfect opportunity to send, in this instance, if the member clicks on this and say, yes, however, my invoice is wrong, you can send an alert to the internal staff person to get it fixed and send it over to them. So much more efficient for your staff. And then finally, so AMFT, we love this chart at Prop Fuel because it shows the transition from when members used to renew over time with regard to how close to their membership expiration the date was. And this is actually a chart from Association Analytics that they use to analyze the year over year when do members renew question. And so Amanda over at AMFT said, she was pretty shocked at the shift. The single change in process that they had with the new campaign was the method. So instead of just sending out the broadcast, they just asked a question regarding renewals, and again, reduced usage of staff time. So that's significant when you look at it's significant financially for the organization. It's also makes a huge difference in how staff is spending time. And then, oh yes, I put this in here. So the lengthy survey. So the association trends. So this organization, they went to look at their email list and said, gosh, there's a lot of people who are just not responding. They haven't opened an email in 4 months or whatever it is. And we're going to ask them around Halloween time if they're ghosting us. And I love this campaign. It's the best. It won a Trendy Silver Award this year at the Association Trends event. So awesome job. And this is just a great one. So this is something that I want to cover just quickly here. I know we have a couple minutes left and I'll do some Q&A. This is the stages of awareness guide that I put together. You have stages in your organization, in your email list, and on social media, wherever it is. You have varying stages of awareness for your prospects and your members. And depending on where they're at and where their mindset is, you need to deliver the message differently to them, or deliver a different message. And so this mindset piece right here is really what I'm talking about today, is like the more you can get into their mindset, the more you can solve their problems and the better success you're going to have, whether it's non-dues revenue, dues revenue, whatever it is. I actually have, if you go to propfuel.com, we have a 100 questions campaign, but if you sign up for that, I'll also there's one communication I have that offers this up, and it's just a really good look at, if you look at what you're doing now with all these different stages, if you don't have your campaign set up this way, if you're not delivering messages based on their level of awareness, this is a great place to start. Here you see like solution aware, they might know that about your association. So at this stage, you want to provide them something that's related to the challenge that you solve, the challenge that you understand of theirs that you solve. So if you're on our list, you'll receive this from us, but I wanted to highlight here that this is the mindset piece that we're talking about today, is the listening. So if you want more ideas on how to listen, I'd love for you to schedule a call with us. And this is that kind of growth mindset that I was talking about. I actually, before I was with PropFuel, I had the opportunity to do a PropFuel demo and I didn't do it. And I wish that I had done it. So if you want to learn more about this and see more examples, I did a lot of member renewal examples today, but there are so many more of this kind of listening focused style of engagement that can turn around your ROI and really the engagement and relationship with your members. You can see how this can happen to serve individually at scale to serve your members. And then also the reduced email friction. You saw some of that today, also over SMS, but all of these examples today were over email, and how you can kind of blend the broadcast method that you still need to do, but finding opportunities where to listen more. That's all of the things that we talk about when you schedule a call with us. So, and I wanted to offer you today, if you do want to schedule a call, if you do it today, we'll waive your setup fees if you decide to join. I think we have some clients on today. Thank you for joining us, all of our amazing clients that are doing great work. But you can go to propfuel.com and click on book a demo if you'd like to join us and talk more about all the things I've been talking about today. So I would love to hear from you now. What questions do you have for me? We have about 5 minutes to just talk. I almost wish these were set up like meetings, because I would much rather have a conversation rather than get all of this information to you. But I'd love to hear from you now and see what questions you have. Let's go to the Q&A. Okay, somebody asked, can you put the slide back up that was before your turn? Yes, I can. I'm going to just go back here. What questions can I answer from all of you? Or what have you gathered today? I'm also curious to hear, like, what did you learn today that you hadn't thought about before, or just reminded you about as it relates to member engagement? I think this is what you were asking for, anonymous attendee. Flip the script. Everybody loves this one. It kind of just overly simplifies the shift in communicating in a new way. So I love this one too. Any questions here? Anything at all? I'd love to answer. I'll give it one more minute here. Danielle, we've been looking for a way to put buttons into an email. I'll be setting up. Okay, cool. Yeah, absolutely. And so one thing I'll say about this call to action buttons, whatever you want to call them, is it is a call to action, but it's not telling the member to do something. It's actually like having them answer a question, right? So it's not only different in that way on the front end in terms of what it looks like and the appearance, but it's also what happens after they click. So in the example of what's keeping you up at night, if somebody answers that the like policy changes are keeping them up at night, then in one click, when they click that answer, they're going to get immediate information about whatever you have on that in that area of public policy. If there's an event or a webinar coming up, or you just have general information about the Public Policy Committee. And then also with all of our integrations that we have with a ton of AMSs, marketing automation systems, and other systems that you all probably use, you can write that data back. And so then you can say, okay, this person's actually concerned about policy. We're going to put them into this policy campaign over here so that they can start receiving more information about what's happening with public policy. So you learned the new information, but now you can actually do something actionable with it to drive the value that you're not driving currently, or that you weren't driving before you asked the question. Yes, absolutely. Much better easier to segment actually after you've asked a question versus before, right? Patrice, thank you so much. Thank you for getting the 100 questions. I love the 100 questions. You should be asking your members ebook. It's very useful. All of the use cases across the member life cycle, from acquisition all the way to lapse renewals and everything in between. There are ideas there for questions that you can be asking your members throughout the year. And Sarah, you're so welcome. I'm glad that the information was helpful. And if that's it, we're just right on time here. Thank you so much for joining. Again, we'd love to talk with you more. It's not scary. I promise. My team's awesome. And we'd love to talk with you more about just what you're doing with engagement, and just give you some more ideas for what you could be doing in this back half of the year. There's so much time this year still to meet all of your membership goals and your event goals and everything else you're working on. So thank you all so much. Have a great day and a great rest of the summer, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.